So that is kind of a very rapid survey, and I know that Eric has some other very interesting things to say, because I think I've heard most of this presentation.
Yep, there are a few new things that you'll know most of.
Thank you. I assume you know how to get into your...
I will figure it out.
Okay.
I'm going to stall for a moment while I figure out how to get... Actually, that was pretty easy. Oh, that's right.
Is it down on the bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize. It looks like... there. It looks like I did not make this slideshow with this particular projector in mind. And so it might... Yeah, look at that. So I'm not Thma. That is supposed to say amazing, which I just had a zing at the end. The reason that's on there is because I'm going to go through these super quickly. I figure if I spend less than 10 seconds per slide, we'll have plenty of time for questions and so forth afterwards. But in case we don't, just look for me. Just look for amazing online, and all of those people are me. All right. So the Sunstone issue I already mentioned. Oh, actually, can you hand me that stack of books?
Yeah.
Thank you. The Sunstone issue I already mentioned, and it is available at the iPlace store under Artsyllegar. Isn't it right underneath the Artsyllegar sign? Am I remembering correctly? No? Okay. Well, never mind. Anyways, you should get this. It has so many different artists and just such a wide variety of work. It's fascinating. These are some other things that I know are for sale out there. Also, Brandon Dayton, I don't have his book, but his book, Green Monk, is awesome. I'm going to talk about this one briefly. This is called Screwed. He's on the main floor. Undertales, this is the Zombie Nation, also in the Artists Gallery. From the Dust, which is another Book of Mormon comic, on the main floor, and iPlace you've already heard about. And I'm going to try to hit all those things as well. And here we go. This is the first article. How to become a Mormon comic snob in 5 easy steps. Well, I'm going to speed it up for you. 1 step, be here today. Congratulations, you can all now consider yourself Mormon comic snobs. All right, but the weird thing about being the expert on Mormon comics is that, and the fact that nobody else is an expert in it, is that I get asked to do all sorts of strange things. So this book was published by a major international university reference library company textbook thing. I don't exactly, Prager, if you know them. AFL, or no, that's the union. Anyway, they asked me to write about this. The cover's ugly, I apologize. But last week in Orem and next year in Hawaii, the Association of Mormon Letters had its conference, and there were 2 presentations on comics. So I'm happy to say that my burden is being lightened by the addition of extra experts to the field. There's Stephen Carter and Jed Atwood, the creators of iPlace. Stephen Carter gave one of the presentations. The other presentation was given by James Goldberg, who now works in the church office building and was forced to shave his beard. He spoke about the Garden of Enid. He doesn't write the Garden of Enid, but if you're not familiar with the Garden of Enid, you should be, and we will talk about it momentarily. I also make comics, but as you can see from my art, that I will never have a booth at Comic-Con. But these were published. This one was published by a company that also publishes Jeff Lemire, so I feel really like I made it, even though I made no money. Anyway, back to this. One of the things we talked about was the history of Mormons who make comics. John Hale Jr., who was raised in Salt Lake City, is widely credited as being the creator of The Flapper, so that's kind of cool. Floyd Gottfredson's probably spent more years drawing Mickey Mouse professionally than any other human being. He drew the newspaper comics for well over 40 years. And of course, you can't talk about Mormons in comics without talking about Mike Allred. Specifically, we really need to talk about Mad Men and his bizarro Mormon wonderland. Someday I want to have a panel at a Comic-Con where I just talk to Mike about the stuff he does, and specifically the Mormon stuff and Mad Men. Like, if you, as Mike mentioned, the 3 Nephites are characters, and it's impossible. I don't even know where to start. Like, if you've not read Mad Men, you will be amazed. It is wild and fun and full of philosophy and theology, and it's a blast, and it's crazy, and it's really popular, and it's so very Mormon. He recently finished iZombie. He didn't write this one, but it's pretty good. Golden Plates. I'll talk a little bit more about this later. And most recently, he's working on Silver Surfer, but he just finished up a run on Fantastic Four, in which the Fantastic Fours disappeared and 4 minor superheroes have to step in, and they have to raise all the superhero kids and stuff. It was a very popular book. It did really well in the marketplace. It was the family-friendly book, undoubtedly, the last couple of years. In the Marvel universe, as long as we're in Marvel, for a while they had this initiative, and I don't know if this is still ongoing. I don't read Marvel very regularly. Sorry. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. It's a dangerous thing to admit. You never know who's in the crowd. But for a while they had this initiative where every state was going to have its own superhero team, and we never got to see the so-called Mormon superheroes of Utah, but they existed, and they are out there somewhere in the Marvel Universe. There's Dr. Deseret, who's already been mentioned, and Celtics of Strangers. I thought they were going to have a booth here today. They don't, but because of a successful Kickstarter, there will be a Volume 2, which suggests to me that there will be these things available in the future. I have not read them myself, but they look hilarious. I don't know if they're any good, but so no problem. This Captain Connect with our group. I'll skip him. This has been work by Tyler Kirkham. He currently works for DC. He also co-created and co-wrote and did the covers for another work that you may recognize from your book you're carrying around with yourselves. It's an advertisement. I mentioned this one earlier. He's on the floor today. He did the covers for this but didn't do the art because DC has rules about what you can and cannot do when you work for them. Jake Black, I don't think is here today. I wanted to put Jake up there because I'm mostly talking about artists, and Jake is a writer. Jake writes things. He writes for comics. He writes for TV. He did Small Village, you can see. I'm not sure what he's doing right now. He was quite ill for a while. I don't know if he's back in the industry or not, but he's a very talented writer. Back to the artist. The fellow who created all the new Lantern cores, the visual elements of the new Lantern core for DC is Ethan Van Sciver, who is LDS. He also did the new visuals of Flash, which everybody really, really loves, but I can't really tell us how that much different is. I don't know, it's not different, but everybody else thinks it's great, and who am I to say otherwise? His brother is Noah Van Sciver, who is, I really love Noah's stuff. Noah is one of my favorite artists I'm going to show you today. He's very much, he's sort of like the modern incarnation of R. Crumb, only less nasty. And he did a really good, he started a really good biography of Joseph Smith, which I hope he finishes someday because it might be as good as his biography of the young Abraham Lincoln. And if you've not read this, you really have to. This is one of the best comic books I've read in the last few years. It is remarkable. Yeah, it's just I don't even know where to start. You should definitely, if your library doesn't have it, tell them to, and then buy your own copy anyway. This is his book that just came out. I haven't read it yet. Just barely came out like a week or so ago. This is work by Blair Theric, who as far as I know, is the first Mormon to graduate from the Vermont Masters of Fine Arts College of Cartooning or whatever it's called. This is something that is, this one that I'm speeding through right now is part of the Sunstone edition that I was talking about. By the way, I need to give you a quick warning. If you Google Sunstone Comics, there's a really, really, really erotic comic by that name that has since come up and thrown us out of the Google rankings. So just be warned. Just be careful. Maybe Google Sunstone Magazine and then find the comics from there. This is what Blair's working on right now. He's illustrating this series of books. Annie Kuhn is probably best known for her enormously cute puppy books, and she's so cute. And but she also does stuff that is quite thought-provoking as well. She did a really great movie. She's mostly known as an animator on Joseph Smith and Joan of Arc and Black Elk, and one of her movies is in the permanent collection of the Museum of Fine Art in Manhattan. This was already mentioned by Mike. I wanted to put it up here because Blake is one of the founders of the Salt Lake Comic Con. So this is his work. I've only read a short excerpt that appears in my book, and it's quite unnerving. Ryan Otley's also downstairs. Do you guys know Ryan Otley? He's very popular. He did not create Invincible, but he's been drawing it for a long time now. Whether he's drawing other people's characters or his own characters, he melds this really weird blend of violence and fun that I don't know anybody else who. Yeah, if you haven't read Sea Bear and Grizzly Shark, you are really missing out. It is really funny, and there's enough of it online that you can. Yeah, it's just like, but it's just like so ridiculous and violent and crazy. And his sketchbook is called Violence and Pinwheels, which really captures it. That's Ryan Otley. He's downstairs in the artist. Every time I walk by today, he hasn't been there, but hopefully he'll be there at some point. To go a completely different direction, newspaper comics, of which are Pickles, as far as I know, has never had a girl with a unicorn horn put it through another creature. Pickles is one of the, in my opinion, one of the most consistently well-written newspaper comics, especially of its age, because you know how most newspaper comics sort of peak after a while. Like when Get Fuzzy came out 10 years ago, it was the funniest thing since Calvin and Hobbes, and it's kind of routine at this point. But like this one's a little routine at this point. Also in your newspaper. Also in your newspaper. The Friend is the church's magazine for children. Mike mentioned it a little bit. Sal Castrato is published there. This particular artist is, you mentioned him by name.
Brad Tier.
Yes, thank you. This is Brad Tier. Nowadays he's mostly doing plein air painting, but he still does some comics. If you are as old as I am and remember the 90s, you may remember Cypher, which is one of the seminal independent comics of the 90s. Not one of the ones that made the most money, but it's up there with the Image stuff and Bone and some of these, especially the black and white comics that really changed our idea that comics don't just have to be about Superman. Cypher is weird and surreal and strange and really fun and interesting. Right now the comic he's working on is The Subterranean, which I have not read because I don't own an iPad. It's specifically designed to be on, like Kindle Fire or something like that, or iPad. But it's using his old scratchboard style, which is, I think it's really cool. I really like his style. You should check it out. You can see the website down there. But just look for Subterranean Chronicles and you'll find it. If you're as old as I am again, your idea of Mormon childhood is probably greatly defined by the line of Shakyamuni Kawasaki, who drew so much stuff in The Friend growing up. But the great thing about Shauna is, I don't know if she felt oppressed by being like the voice of Mormon childhood for 20 or 30 years, but she also draws these really exquisitely cute and horrifying monsters. I saw an art gallery show once of her monster work, and it's just like, it's as cute as Matt and Mandy here, and yet it's grotesque at the same time. And she has done a few craft books for Halloween, if you want to get a taste of that. But her strip's been taken over by someone else. But The Friend really should be lauded as one of the only, I think it's safe to say, the only place, actually that's not true. It and Sunstone are the only two regularly published things which publish comics which are specifically Mormon. Whether you like them or not is almost irrelevant. The fact is they're doing it. But the church has been using comics for a long time. Sometime I got to scan this entire pamphlet and put it up. This is from the late 70s when correlation subsumed Relief Society into the main body of the church and started. At that point, everyone could be a member of Relief Society who was a woman and so forth. Anyways, this is a super cool comic. I might be the only person in the world who has a copy of it outside of libraries. It's really cool though. Webcomics, of course, everyone's doing webcomics these days. This is by Nathan Shoemate, who's currently doing another panel right now. ChiefCatBean.net. It's of the style of Wondermark or The New Adventures of Queen Victoria, where you take old art from old books and make it funny. I recommend funny, just sort of blanket. I like funny. Super Siblings is another one that's pretty popular. Patrick Scullin. He hits all the cons in California, but he's not here today. His stuff was recently republished in book form, which is, I think, most webcomics' idea of success. Kevin Beckstrom does explicitly Mormon stuff. His stuff is sort of a quality of like Beetle Bailey. Like it's very professional, but personally I don't find it that funny. But that's nothing against Kevin. I'm glad he's doing them anyways. He has 3 ongoing strips right now. The first one up there is about what it's like in heaven, and the second one is what it's like in Zarahemla, and then the third one is, this is his new one, what it's like as a sister missionary. And he also does panels for Meridian Magazine. Oh, sorry, was that a 5-minute warning? 15, okay, good. Here's another one, Brinkwater and Toad by Jacob Spute. Although, if you go there today, you'll notice that in recent months he stopped posting comics and started posting electronic music. So, whatever. Colby Purcell publishes massively long, epic stories. Emily Muto publishes online these manga things. Nick Perkins has been doing cooties for years online. He's also, last I checked, is the editorial cartoonist for, is it the Ogden paper? One of the papers, not in Salt Lake, but nearby. Although
Standard Examiner.
It's which one?
Ogden Standard.
Ogden Standard Examiner.
Yeah.
Although the way newspapers are, who knows how long he'll have that job. This is Brazilian. This is available on the Facebook. If you go to Cartoon SUD, which is Brazilian, Portuguese for LDS. This is pretty popular. I don't read Portuguese, so I cannot comment on its quality. I do kind of love how he's juxtaposing in this one the cartoon missionaries and the photograph. I'm always charmed by that. But of course, if we're going to talk Mormons in webcomics, we have to talk about Schlock Mercenary and Howard Taylor, who has a prominent table downstairs, and you should not miss it. This is the very first Schlock Mercenary comic ever, which is, gosh, I don't even know, like
They get better.
13 years ago. Yes, so this is one from just a few months ago, and this is them compared. And one of the things I admire about Howard, besides the fact that he has not missed a single day with no boss besides himself since he began, which I just find remarkable. If I were my own boss, I would probably skip a day now and then. But you can see how much time he's put into working on his craft. His stuff is so much better now. He's consistently nominated for Hugos. Anyway, science fiction, webcomic, Schlock Mercenary. He makes a living at this. He's up there with like Cyanide and Happiness and XKCD and Nedroid and things like that. He makes money at this. This is Ape Lad. Adam Cofer also has a booth downstairs. This was done for our book. This is a Find the Hidden Picture thing of the style he also does for The Friend. Online, he's probably better known for things like this. He does the Laugh Out Loud Classic Cats, which is like a cross between Lolcats and 1920s hobo comics. And they're best taken in large doses, because the more of them you read, the more you break down and the funnier they get. So, I just love it. This is for sale downstairs if you find this amusing. He works for a lot of the online t-shirt companies where they have like t-shirts for a few days, like Whoop Shirt and some of the other ones. He has a sense of humor that the internet appreciates. This is one that is sadly dead, about a guy who kills monsters for a living, which gets awkward when his son's best friend becomes a zombie. He did something for the Sunstone Comics issue, which he called Mormons and Monsters. It's longer than just these two panels, but you'll have to buy the book if you want to see more. Which was when it came in, when this submission came in, I'm like, you guys got to do something for me, and they did, and they sent it to me. I was like, oh crap, because I am currently working on a book called Monsters and Mormons, which is mostly short stories, a couple novellas, 3 poems, and 2 comics, including this one by, whoa, that looks weird. The colors are switched, so I don't know why that happened. Yeah, so imagine it more dark and less white, and anyway, I'm not sure how that happened. Anyway, this is by Steve Morrison, who's better known as a children's book illustrator, and his stuff is, I really like it. And this story is about how Joseph Smith takes clay from the Mississippi River and creates Porter Rockwell, so it's called Mormon Gollum. I really love this story, but some people have been really offended by it, and I'm not sure why, because I thought it was kind of sweet, but it's, yeah, so just, if you're easily offended. There we go, those are the correct colors. There you can see the stoic golem, Porter Rockwell, boogieing into the distance. This is the other one from Monsters and Mormons. This art is by Artsyllegar, who's won an Hugo actually just last year as best fan art or fan's favorite artist or something like that. I forget exactly. She's better known for really horrific stuff, and so this, of course. Here are the wives of Erasmus. They've been sent by Joseph Smith, who was the president of the nation of Deseret, to go to Japan and set up relations with their government. And nobody's offended by this story. I don't know why. There's blood everywhere. You never can tell with people.
And you've got a polygamous wife who uses folk magic.
Yeah, but she can. She also does a lot of stuff that's very rich with symbolic, religious undertones, really beautiful stuff. But if you like your strong women characters, we've got to talk about Shannon Hale. Yeah, we got fans out there. Shannon, you probably, yeah, please.
She was my primary residence.
Was she? All right. I've never met her. I've interviewed her online, but I've never actually. My interview that I did with her and her husband is very funny, and it's not me, it's them. They're very funny. She co-wrote this with her husband. She's better known for Goose Girl and Princess Academy, but Rapunzel's Revenge came out before Tangled, and Tangled has nothing on this. Yeah, and there's a sequel that's since come out also. It's very good. The art is by Nathan Hale, no relation. He is also currently doing these comic books for kids about American history. This particular one is about Nathan Hale, no relation as far as I know to Nathan Hale, the artist. But I'm sure that as soon as he started doing American history comics, he wanted to do one on the guy if I shared his name. This is Jake Parker. This particular book is Missile Mouse. This was published by Scholastic, same as Shannon Hale's book. This is it's good stuff. My boys really like this book. And he used to work for Blue Sky. This is what he's working on now, Skull Chaser. This I think is going to be very popular, even though there is no book out yet. popular artists are already lining up to make copies. If you look online, there are lots of artists who are taking Jake's design and making their own versions of it because he's pretty popular among the artist crowd. This is a page from the unpublished book. It looks a little more, I mean, it's still pretty cartoony, but it looks like it might be for a slightly older audience than Missile Mouse to me. And this is a panel from the thing he did for me for the Sunstone Comics issue. Hopefully you recognize that line. And if you don't, yeah, I guess you can go to Sacramento during the 80s, and that's okay, because you don't have to be more into like comics. All right, Sal Castrato, not only, he did the cover for this, he's best known, I think, would you agree that right now he's best known for doing the Phantom?
Yeah.
Which is very popular outside the United States. It's not so popular in the United States, but
Particularly in Finland.
yeah, but outside the United States, it's still a very popular character. And of course, he's done Green Lantern as well. I don't know if you've been counting, but this makes our third artist to work on Green Lantern in this presentation. Hal Jordan knows so many Mormons that sort of have to wonder about that guy. Sal also drew Power Pack. He was the first artist to work on, and it was his first professional job actually. Power Pack, if you don't remember them, are mutants in the Marvel Universe. They're widely rumored to be Mormon because Sal drew their parents in Brigham Young University and University of Utah gear all the time. No comment on whether or not they actually are. There's Sal again, who's doing like, you know, comic book artist stuff. Mike already talked about Rick Estrada. The thing you should know about him, if he invented Power Girl also, that's probably the best known of the characters that he created. There's a self-portrait in the corner. There's her first appearance. The thing about Sal is he really hated superheroes. He thought they were stupid. I think it's because he grew up in Cuba at a time of war, and he was able to escape because his uncle had some power in New York and was friends with a guy you may have heard of called Ernest Hemingway. And they arranged to bring Rick over and work as an artist. But Sal really liked romance and he liked war comics because he felt those were more real. But because of his work doing the Mormon Battalion and this Piece with Honor that's based on the Jaredites that were in nationally published work, he was invited by the church to work on the New Testament stories, which was the first of the series of comics that are still being published for kids based on scripture. And Rick, when he, I was lucky I got to interview him just before he passed away a few years ago. And he heard what they were willing to pay him. He's like, this is crazy. And I can't work for this. And because of that, everyone who works for the church now actually makes a living wage. And I'm going to skip some of this Book of Mormon stuff because it was already mentioned. But in closing, and then we'll open up for questions in the last 5 minutes, the two presentations I mentioned that were given last week by other people. Steve Carter noticed that in the new version of the Book of Mormon stories, a lot of the prophets have lost their beards. Fun observation. Even Abinadi lost his beard in the new version. Like, what? Abinadi's got a beard. Anyway, I was going to talk more about golden plates, and then I was going to mention From the Dust. But they have a booth down there. Just go talk to Mike Mercer. He's a really nice guy. He'll tell you all about it. And there's iPlates. Remember, go find their store. And then the Garden of Enid is another web comic, which I am really enjoying. I'm going to skip this iPlate stuff.
Oh.
And I'm sorry. It's funny, and you're going to like it, and you need to go to the booth and pay your money. All right. Anyway, here's Enid. This is the question that James's presentation was about. And he was suggesting that life is difficult and life is complicated, and that Mormon art specifically can address the questions of how do we live in a world, and how does the church actually relate to that. And recently, Enid, in addition to being just funny, has started doing some more serious comics and dealing with her mother, who has some mental illness issues, and it's turning from not just a laugh a minute, but it's also turning to a rather serious work of art also. The End by Jake Parker, and Zine is me if you want to talk to me. In the last, we have like 4 minutes, I think. Please, we have a microphone. You are welcome to address us, or whatever it is that
Any questions? I will also mention that I have down here a summary of my presentation if anybody's interested in picking it up. So,
the floor is yours.
Any questions?
Please.
Mike Allred's Golden Plates comics, is that ever going to be finished?
You want a realistic answer or what he says? Okay, he says, sure, someday I want to go back to it, but right now I have all these high-paying gigs. For those of you who weren't there when it happened, and I wasn't there, but I was on the internet. And it was shocking when Mike Allred quit the hype. He was doing Ecstatic at the time, and he was making a ton of money, and he quit, and he said, I'm going to do Mormon comics. And everybody was like, what? You're crazy. And he insisted they broke even and did better than break even, that he was making a living, but it wasn't enough. And so so he went back. He really wants to do a biography of Joseph Smith also. But I just don't see him doing it. And I think part of the problem was that the comics are good and they're beautiful, but there's something about them that never quite worked. And I think if he could figure that out, he would go back, because I think he's aware of that, even though he won't admit it. So I've talked to him about this a number of times, and he's always says he's going to do it, but you can tell that there's something holding him back. And I think it's a combination of the money and a combination of not quite getting it quite right. Yeah?
So, did you know, I think that the Wonder Twins from the Marvel Universe are all
Yes, the rumor is that the Wonder Twins are also Mormon. I forget what the evidence is for that. Well, if you were at my last panel, you would know that would not stop you. So, Buy Monsters and Mormons, you can learn all about that. But yeah, I've heard that also. I forget what the evidence is for that. I don't remember if it was specifically said or if it was tangential evidence like with Power Pack. If you go to Xperience.com, it does a good job of explaining likely religious persuasions and movie characters. Yeah, you're right though.
Okay, thanks for coming all.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, Mike and I are walking down to the Sherlock Holmes one, but you're certainly welcome to join us there.